Welcome to MycoWorks Talks. I'm your host, Xavier Gallego, VP of Brand and Marketing, and I'm delighted to take you with me on our journey to grow the future of materials. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we talk with Sophia Wang, our co-founder and chief of culture. She's back to share her favorite moments in the 10-year anniversary of MycoWorks. She's going to also talk about the future and share her thoughts and what's coming next. So stay tuned. Let's get started. Hello, Sophia.
Hi, Chevy.
Good to have you today. I'm really excited about this podcast because we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
10 years.
How crazy is that? I was just thinking about it, but I think you are the only employee that's been with us 10 years. Is that correct?
I think so.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's great. Continuity is great. Having the founder be involved is great.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have you. It's good to share stories from the beginning, you know, when nobody was here, that we can like keep it as a podcast or as a thing that people can hear afterwards, you know. So one of the things that we were thinking with the team is that how we can celebrate our anniversary, you know, what are the things that we can do? And I thought it was really cool to just invite you again, because you've been with the podcast a few times.
Yep.
And just, you know, we want to ask you, what was the first time that you heard the word mycelium or anything about sustainability? But I want to hear, what are the 10 moments in the history of MycoWorks that you selected?
Yeah. Well, trip down memory lane.
Let's go.
Well, it obviously has to start with meeting Phil Ross, our co-founder, because that is when my journey began. So Phil, as we've talked about on this podcast before, had been working with mycelium as an art material decades ago. Like, we're talking 90s.
Yeah, before MycoWorks.
Before lots of things.
Yeah.
And Phil and I met in 2007. I was in grad school at Berkeley studying poetry and thinking about my future, thinking I should start to professionalize and connect with people in the Bay Area art community. And so I joined up with Phil as an artist assistant. And this is when I was first introduced to Phil's art practice, which of course had to do with mycelium. He was making beautiful sculptures and objects. And it really was the first time I'd ever heard of mycelium, seen it, discovered all that it was capable of, not even all, just what Phil had demonstrated in his artworks. And of course, it was just a world of really inspiring conversations and collaborations with Phil. So that's a key moment. I mean, that story goes on. It goes on to the founding of MycoWorks, and we can tell that story. But that moment of meeting Phil, which I remember was at the Exploratorium in San Francisco in 2007. This is a hands-on science and discovery museum here that is beloved by people who are local here. And yeah, we just had a very casual conversation in the museum, and the next thing I knew, I had gotten the position. And, you know, I asked Phil, I was like, well, you haven't seen my resume or, you know, and he's like, I just have a good instinct. And it was a good instinct.
So imagine that you had a phone that could call Sophia 10 years ago, or a little bit before 10 years, because that's a little bit
2007? That's, do the math.
Yeah, I 1, 2, 3, 16?
Yeah.
16 years ago. What would you say? Like, imagine you have a cell phone, only 1 minute. You can talk to Sophia 16 years ago. What would you like leave the message with? What do you want Sophia to know?
This is the start of something huge, and just stay curious, keep learning, and don't be scared.
Oh. Can you imagine that you get a random call like, this is the start of something huge?
Yeah, that would actually terrify me. Yeah, like, what does this mean? Now I'm more scared. Yeah.
Well, definitely a great first moment. What is the second one?
The second one would be in 2016. So this is...
Well, fast forward 9 years.
Yes, 9 years. So basically, you know, Phil and I worked together for about a couple years and then go our separate ways. I go to finish my PhD at Berkeley, and Phil is continuing to demonstrate mycelium artworks around the world. We found the company in 2013. That's a whole other story that I've told before on this podcast.
Yeah.
And in 2016, we get accepted into IndieBio, which is a biotech accelerator program. There's one based here, and they're in New York and around the world as well.
Big moment to be
It was a big
accepted.
moment, right? Because it was our first, big chunk of money that didn't come from our families. And it was also a very structured program of, I believe, 3, maybe 4 months, where Phil and I had to go to this subfloor basement accelerator den in Soma in San Francisco. And anyone who's in the Bay Area knows what kind of neighborhood Soma is. And every day, 9 to 5, which I was not used to. I'd been a grad student for a long time at that point, so 9 to 5 schedule was very novel for me. And basically get trained and skilled up in all the basics of actually running a company and learning to put together your board deck and learning to do a pitch and creating our pitch deck and writing our business model.
Now you're
And
probably an expert with that,
Well,
that stuff. You've done a few, huh?
now we have a team of people who are all really good at that. So this was a big moment for me because it was really, making the shift from me and Phil just trying to figure it out on our own to having really structured support. And also, it's kind of like finishing school for young entrepreneurs. Like you actually have to learn the culture and concepts and skills and tools. And
Was this your first job?
kind of like I'd had like small internships and things like, in college and after college, but this felt more like I'm going to an office and I'm doing something every day. So it was existentially really difficult for me. I was making a transition from being, kind of a self-directed academic artist to really getting with a very structured program of training and development to run and build a company.
Yeah. I bet there was a moment where also, a realization moment where you see that what you're doing, like you're not the first follower, that you also talk about it. Like you have
Right.
other followers after you, the people are actually willing to spend money and trust you.
Yeah.
Which is like, wow, hey, here we go.
Right, and with money meant that we could start to build a team. So we could pay the people who had been helping us with, sheer sweat equity and, able to pay them and bring more people on.
From reading poetry to reading
Yeah,
spreadsheets.
yeah,
no?
basically.
It's a different.
It's like boot camp, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's the best way to learn, right? Like
Yeah.
by doing it.
Yeah, and many valuable lessons and a lot of valuable advice. And so I am grateful for that time, and I also see it as a really difficult time.
Okay, let's move on. Moment number 3.
Moment number 3, I'm going to say 2019. So jump forward 3 years.
Okay.
We now have about 40 people. We still have the production space that we're using in San Francisco that was essentially Phil's art studio converted into early MycoWorks space. But we have an office in Emeryville, and we are starting to essentially build out our first pilot plant in Emeryville,
Where we are today.
where we are sitting right now. That's right.
Correcto.
So we have this growing team, we have these operations, and I decide that we should introduce our first set of company values. And it's very important to me because I see that a culture is a very organic thing, and if you don't steer it, it just evolves on its own with the elements that are there, which are, of course, really valuable and rich. And of course, you want the culture to come from the people that you've gathered, but then there's also principles that you want to have in place because you have a vision and you have goals and you have objectives and you need certain kinds of behaviors and a mindset in order to support those outcomes. So it was a fun exercise, the first time I've ever done anything like that, sitting down with a team and, asking people what they thought were the most important qualities and values that we needed at MycoWorks. And, we came up with a set of 6 terms. Some of those have carried over to what we talk about today. Some of those, I would say, are embedded in our DNA, and we talk about them in other ways. But all of it, I think, is still there. We just have, I suppose, a more refined and developed way of talking about them.
True. I remember that process.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. But I see the value now that it's been, 4 years?
Yeah.
I see the value of thinking about it, because when you are a small company, the impact is there because you're present.
Yep.
So when you're like a 30, 40 employee company, everybody's in the same place, it's very easy to feel culture and to, like what you were saying, like bring values because values are with you. But what happens when you grow to 200, 300, and
Exactly.
you don't do this homework?
Yep.
Then, yeah.
You
Then
might,
it's like, it's just like, what's going
it's
on?
too late. You might have some things in place that you need to somehow steer out or coach out. And so start with intention first.
So we had 6, and now I think we are 3.
Yeah.
Like, what are the 3 ones?
So now we are be mycelial, cultivate quality, and grow the future. And those are phrases that are meant to encompass a lot of concepts, but those are the core ideas. And to give you a sense of how far we've come, back in 2019, we had 6 terms, and they were just one-word terms. And they are quantifiability, transparency, excellence, empathy, inclusivity, and thriving.
Yeah, but it's a good exercise. I still think that it was such a nice first approach to values.
Yeah. Do you remember that? When we rolled those out? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. I was like, okay. It's one of those things that I don't question it, but while you're doing it, you don't think about the importance of it until time passes,
Yeah. Well, I think about it all the time, in part because I sit on the people team in this company, and so I'm privy to all the amazing range of human behaviors and actions and choices and decisions and things said. And you basically want to cultivate as ethical and functional and compassionate and cooperative of a group of people as you can. And you basically start with like golden rules, essentially.
So let's go to the next one. Top 4.
Yeah. Next one is a really fun one, and it's from the same year, 2019. So we're in this new space in Emeryville. We have an office, and we also have the lease on I think it's 25,000 square foot industrial space. So it's empty, and we have to build it into our first factory and also build a whole office space in there. And so
it's empty.
It's empty. It's like, it's raw. There's exposed wood beams and concrete walls. And so we are making plans to build it out. And at the same time, in my whole art life, which I have continued parallel to MycoWorks in all these years, I have been commissioned by the Merce Cunningham Trust to create work in response to Merce Cunningham's body of work. So background is that I have a dance and performance practice, and I've been doing it since, 2010 or so. And Merce Cunningham is a really important modern contemporary choreographer. And I spent a couple weeks working with dancers from Merce's company, learning some basic technique, and then also immersing in the archive of works. So I have the opportunity to make a work commissioned by the trust, and I decide I want to make a dance movie, a dance video, and what better space to do it in but our empty factory that has yet to be built. So I basically spend, a couple months putting a concept together, putting my collaborator team together. I worked with my dance collaborator, Brontez Purnell, and Lisa Rybovich-Krale, and visual artist I work with a lot, and Kim West, my collaborator who does music, and Chani Bachwinkle, who did the camera. And we brought all our ideas and stuff into the space one weekend and plotted it out and shot it over the course of 8 hours.
Fast.
It was very fast. It was basically developed in one day. Yeah,
it was cool. Like I remember, like when we did, I think a photo shoot that it was our first corporate photo shoot, and we did it in the empty space downstairs. I could see you. I could feel like already looking at the space, like I want to do this.
Yeah,
I want to do that.
Yeah,
and then you came up. I don't know. It was a Monday or Tuesday. Like I've
made a movie
video.
in there. Yeah.
It's so funny.
And I love that project because it's an amazing document of this space in a moment of time that we will never return to. I mean, the space with like full potential, and right before we filled it up with an entirely different set of concepts and ideas and practices and people.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that we have
it's
that
precious.
because also like again like in the more the portrait shots that we have, I still remember where they are, and the
Yes.
rooms are completely different. The space is different, so we have a little archive of how it was before the pilot plan.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
And I loved that this video was shown to an art audience that had really no idea what kind of space they were looking at and wouldn't recognize it if they came in here today.
That's amazing.
I did, of course, have like a wish, vision, goal to do that again in our new space.
In South Carolina.
Yeah, but it's a lot harder to like dash
yeah.
over on the weekend with your crew, to
And
South Carolina versus
now it
here.
might be too late.
I know.
It's done almost.
It's built out.
Yeah.
It just happens so fast. So
Yeah. Wow, that space it was many times this one. So
yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
maybe a future plant.
Okay. So we are in 2019, and now we're going to
I would say 2020, the
2020.
following year. So the plant is starting to operate, and we bring on the team member who is now our COO, Doug Hardesty.
Here we go.
This is an important moment for me, I would say, because not only because Doug is a really important coach and mentor for me in the company, but because of what Doug, like the capability and leadership that Doug brought to the company. So Doug comes with 30 years of experience in Fortune 50 companies, bringing new technologies and new products online from conception to developing and scaling the process to figuring out the actual manufacturing systems and equipment and infrastructure and like physical space, right? Like actually just building factories to make these things happen. So Doug brought a lot of mature systems and insight and processes that we really needed as a very, very new manufacturing operation in order to ramp up to actually bring our new plant here in Emeryville online. So that I would say is critical for the company, but for me, I have no background in manufacturing at all. And so it's been really, really valuable to have access to Doug's insight, experience, leadership. And he's such a enthusiastic coach and teacher that I'm really just a sponge around him. And I would say a lot of what I've learned about leadership and managing people here has come from following Doug's lead. So
100%.
yeah, I really have to.
And every time
Shout
that I
out
talk
Doug.
every time that I talk to him, it's like, okay, like every time is like a new thing that he comes up with.
Yes.
Like he's very similar to a lot of our backgrounds that we come from one place and we've done this and that. Like he in within the manufacturing realm, but he was a lawyer. He studied he's been involved with new technologies. He has many degrees in different things. And it's almost like he had the curiosity
Right.
that we all have.
Right.
Obviously, sometimes when you think about manufacturing, you don't think about creativity, but it is needed, and it needs people that has curiosity
Yeah.
and kindness and empathy.
Yeah.
And that's I agree with you 100% that that's what he brings into the table every day.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, deep learner. I mean, we're really a team of deep learners. No one's ever done this before, so you have to be invested in learning.
Yeah, it's almost like a skill needed to
Yeah.
become a MycoWorker. Huh?
Yep.
That's cool. Okay, so let's go to moment number 6.
Moment number 6. So, we're settling in to our new operations in Emeryville, and I'm, continuously evolving in my role, which is just something that never stops. And Matt Scullin, our fearless CEO, is, another mentor for me, also my boss. So, we periodically have conversations where we really look at like what I'm doing to support the company and what else I could be doing to support the company. And I remember there was this really nice moment for me where Matt's advice was just like, what we need is more Sophia, which is an interesting thing because, I've been here for 10 years, so it's hard to think of what more.
More means.
Right, what does more mean?
What do you mean?
Yeah, and what I think it ended up meaning was that, I have been like deeply in service to the company and team for a long time, and always from the perspective of, a bit in the background, like, okay, like, let's make this happen. What can I do to support it? And that was an invitation from Matt for me to really recognize my particular strengths and passions and what I do that is very distinct, for instance, from Phil, our co-founder. And we had been such a unit as founders that it was really important for me to differentiate myself and my skills and my tools and value as my own. And I think this involved a lot of reflection on my journey to date, like what had I done for MycoWorks and what was in it for me, like what was really driving me, and then bring that forward so that could be my motivation and how I focused my contributions moving forward. And so that was a really important moment, because as the years go on, like you have to keep reinvesting in what you're in it for. And that involves being very honest about who you are in the project. It of course helped because meanwhile, Chevy, you're helping to tell our company story, which means helping to tell my story. And there was also like all these amazing press opportunities for interviews and storytelling. So through the practice of having to tell and retell my story as a founder, I got to lean into what does more Sophia mean
I love
today.
it. More Sophia, please.
Okay. Continuously.
Yeah. Like that's a great. I cherish that day that Matt told you that. So I'm glad that happened, and it's good. It's good to celebrate the journey and celebrate you and anybody that's part of the journey. So I'm glad that happened. Okay, so my favorite number 7.
Okay.
What's happening?
I would say a really important part of my journey at MycoWorks are the failures, and the failures that you take personally as much as you try not to. So there have definitely been moments where I've learned really hard lessons about how not to address a cultural issue in the company, like how not to deal with managing someone who I'm finding difficult to manage. And through those mistakes, I've certainly become a much stronger leader and communicator and manager. But I will say that when they were happening, they're like the most humbling, awful things where you just feel like you've really let yourself down, you've let someone else down. You look really sharply in harsh light at your inexperience and things you don't know. And it can feel awful, but the great thing about being a learner is that you can immediately see what there is to learn. And then that is a strength. So I do feel gratitude for those moments. And one-on-one, anytime, I will talk to you in full about what those were, because they are very colorful stories. But the main thing is that failures have been incredibly valuable to me personally, even if they're difficult.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a better word than failures and mistakes.
I don't know, like bad decisions.
Yeah, I get you. Like I was saying, successful tries,
Yeah,
like,
and sometimes it's a failure of courage that leads to a bad choice, and sometimes it's a failure of habit that leads to not the best way of addressing something.
Okay, but like it's good to know that you take in those moments and repurpose them.
Yeah.
So I understand why you're picking this as a top 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. Number 8.
Okay, number 8.
We're almost there. Like we
Yeah,
only have
almost
3
there.
more.
Well, I would say that number 8 and actually the rest are all in our banner year last year. We have lots of things coming up this year, of course, but last year we did a product release with Allen Street, which is a French leather goods company, and
Very good one.
very good one, yes. And for the first time ever, I got to have a consumer experience where I went online and I selected some products made with Reishi and bought them and had them shipped to me. And
What
then
a trip.
unboxed them and got to look at objects made with our material for the first time ever in that context. And it was just mind-blowing. Yeah,
I can imagine. It took a while. Yeah.
Yeah, is at that point, like 9 years,
9
So I think there's a wallet and there was
Was it a good unboxing?
It was. I did a whole video of it. I don't know if I shared it with you, but I made a video to commemorate the unboxing.
Oh, we'll have to share with this podcast. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be good.
And I think I bought 2 of everything, knowing that we probably wanted some for our archives,
Yeah.
to keep around, and some to maybe give to my family that have supported me for all these
So
years. Like,
crazy.
look, it's real. We actually made a product with our material. So yeah, there's a laptop case, there's like a big tote bag, there's a wallet, and I mean, beautiful quality, like lovely fabrication, and just something that, of course, was conceptually something that we had been planning for a long time, but like to actually have it in your hand is another thing.
Yeah, wow. It's a culmination of a few moments. So that's good. That's really, really good. And also I want to say that we are recording this before we open Vider. So
Oh, yeah.
probably if this was recorded like in December, you will
Yeah.
have a moment say like opening Vider. That was a
Of
big
course.
moment. So number 9.
Okay, 9 and 10 are essentially in the same category as
Should we combine them?
yeah,
It's like
9 and 10. Yeah,
Okay.
basically exciting public press moments that I
Oh.
never imagined was in my future. So one was last fall in 2022 during Fashion Week. The Fashion Impact Fund selected me along with 9 other women to honor as part of the Conscious Fashion campaign. And so these are all people who are involved in companies or research or work around sustainable, conscious fashion endeavors. And so the big reveal was on the NASDAQ billboard in Times Square, which is the largest, tallest
moment.
billboard in Times Square. So yeah, we went out for it. I think Chevy, you supported a little bit of a photo shoot so we
Of
could
course.
document. Yeah,
Of course.
and
I mean, what a moment.
yeah, and then there was this uncanny moment where I'm in Times Square and then I'm also on the billboard in Times Square. And, New York is where I spent my childhood, and this is not really something that I saw in my future. So this was a very exciting and I would say uncanny moment that,
Yeah. So
yeah.
let's go. Like I wanna tie back to the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like there was another moment related to this, but imagine that on that phone call that you do to yourself in 2007 that we were talking before, you could add images, and suddenly you add the image of that billboard.
Oh, yeah.
And you also add the image of the New York Times.
Oh, yeah, right. And we were also in the New York Times that year. It was a great feature, and me and Matt holding material. And, if you grew up in New York, the New York Times holds a special place as like the paper of record, and really hadn't organized my life around trying to get into the New York Times.
Where you been?
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
it.
thanks to MycoWorks.
What else?
Yeah.
So I was like, imagine yourself getting that text message like you are, like it's gonna be crazy, or what did you say? It's like this is gonna be huge.
It's huge.
This is gonna
Yeah.
be huge, and then you see like
Right.
the 2 photos. I'm like, what?
Right. Yeah, it'd be great to just have the photos, but no text or context. Just like
Yeah,
look at the
that
photo
would be
and try to guess
crazy.
what's
Wow,
going
what a
on.
moment. Cool. Well, so this is a little recap of the 10 moments that you want to elevate your personal experience. Obviously, we have other moments, and everybody has their own story in MycoWorks. I just want to make sure that these are yours, and I thought it will be really cool to share. Tell me a little bit about the future. Like, what do you, like, not the next 10 things, like, let's keep it brief. What are you looking forward to, like, the next 10 years? Or what are you looking forward? What are the things that you want to see?
Well, there's the very obvious company journey story that I just have to say, which is we obviously want to have broad impact on the world and on the industry and for fashion and for the material space. And so to have that impact, we have to have really broad adoption, which means we need more material, more production capacity, which means we need more sites and a bigger team. And so that all is the path that we're on. We're opening a new factory this fall in South Carolina, and so we're on that journey already. So that I feel like is a given. I mean, along with that, we will likely have more products and more product applications and really exciting innovation around that. So that's the company journey. But for me, for the next 10 years, the future, I would say very broadly, I want MycoWorks to have become iconic, not only in terms of our leadership in this emerging material space for mycelium technologies, but also iconic for the kinds of leaders that we cultivated here. The culture of creativity that we nurtured here, and how we demonstrated how powerful it can be to really leverage a diversity of thinking and doing and approaches to communication. If you really focus on the fact that we're a biotech company founded by artists, drawing on wisdoms from traditions ranging from leather tanning to horticulture to environmental design to sculpture and the fine arts, those are bodies of knowledge, are what made this technology and this company possible. And if we're outstandingly successful as a company, we'll have shown the world what's possible with a truly integrated, humble approach to learning from the wisdom from the communities and crafts and traditions and artistry all around you, including the wisdom from all the individuals on your team. So that's like, for me, that's what it will mean for MycoWorks to have become iconic, is not just the products and the technology, but the model of creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was very clear. Yeah, that's what it means to be iconic. That's it. It's not only what you do, it's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially in the space of being like an American corporation, right? Like we have some interesting parameters and structures that we're working within, but we found our way in through the back door as artists. And so like, what could we do with that? That's going to be different from the way other companies have done it.
Well, Sophia, that's it. Like we finished our 4th or 5th podcast, but this one is very special because, it's good to share your personal moments and how you see the future. So thank you so much for your time and sharing those stories. I really enjoy it. So I hope the people that are listening also enjoy it too.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed as much as I did hosting it. We are thrilled to have you with us in our journey. So, if you want to learn more, please follow our Instagram page at MycoWorks for our latest news and more. This episode is being produced by Maddie Nathans, sound editing by Corny Vallardo, content editing by Chanda Aloto.